And basically, the first question that I had then and I have today is that you had led, and I mean that you have led the changes of that huge company, which is Nestle, and changing that company. And that company was a food company to a nutrition and health science and health company. I think my first question is, and that's a dramatic change. And my question is, how difficult was that? Well, I know that it was difficult. I know that a lot of people were, by definition, should have opposed that, as any new idea, any new change, be that in politics, for example, I want to change the constitution. Well, it's a small country, Armenia, global nation, but Nestle is huge. So I would love to hear yours short about your experience and that dramatic change that you did with the company. If you can share with me the difficulties, how did you overcome them? Please, Peter.
Well, thank you very much, first inviting me, and secondly for this question. There is no doubt when you want to change a company or whatever, a big institution, there is enormous inertia in what has been done up to now. Nestle had 150 years of being the preeminent food company. Now, the first question you have to ask, why do you want to change? There must be a reason why you want to change that. Well, in the case of Nestle, the fact was that for 150 years, it was a task to produce the amount of calories that people need all over the world in order to assure that they can live, because we need calories as the energy for life. The problem was around 2000 that we realized that too many calories can be as bad for your health as too less calories. So we had to change, instead of looking for a quantitative approach of calorie supply, to a qualitative approach of nutrition, which means that you have to look at what are the micronutrients, what are the vitamins that you're giving with a company. So you move from an energy providing company to a nutrition providing company. That was the reason. And for this, of course, you need to have science, because now it becomes very, very important that what you're doing as you're starting to modify the food that you're delivering, and you're not looking only on calories, you need scientific base for that. So the first thing to be done was to establish a life science institute that would deliver the basis for such a change, okay? And then you have to start to convince, starting from, in case of a company, from the board of directors, your own management team. And some of those people were not very convinced. They said, look, we have been so successful. We are the biggest company in the world, food company. Why do you want to change that now? Okay. And so you have a lot of resistance. What you have to do is, first of all, you have to be very sure what you're doing. You cannot have doubt. If you start to show you have a doubt about it, they will destroy you straight away, okay? So you have to be absolutely sure that the way you want to go, that's the way you are being convinced that's the right way. Then you have to start to talk and to talk and to convince and to explain and go on and things like this. I mean, I went to 198 seminars of Nestle internal seminars to talk to my people all over the world. I talked of course, to the board one-to-one in order to convince them that this was the right way to go. And still, it took us about 10 years before we really turned into the right direction. And now, if I look my followers, they are now on the right way. So it's like when you come to a bifurcation, until you go to the right, okay, it takes a time. It doesn't go, here's a point, next moment you are at the right. No, it is a point and you have to turn to the right all the time. It takes quite a lot of work to convince people, and you have to stay on your course. That's an important thing.
Well, I think that encourages me that if you have clear idea what to do, and you have that clear idea because you believe and you see the future, you have to see the future, you have to have a vision where to go, you have to understand how the world is going to change, and where is the place of your own company like Nestle, or your own country like Armenia, and you are convinced in that. As you said, it takes a lot of time and effort and convincing, and first of all, your own people, then the others. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That was the first question that I had then. If we look now 50 years ahead, that I made this note here, after nutrition and health sciences, looking 50 years ahead now, what is the space you believe Nestle will need to go into transition to stay as a head of this business worldwide? So can we look at 50 years ahead now together?
Yeah, I think, of course, nobody can look 50 years ahead.
You can, Peter. You did it once.
But we have tried to look 25 years ahead, which is already a long period. If I look at 25 years ahead, I think that the initial vision will be part of the DNA of Nestle. So that what is today, we are still in an adaptation mode. We are doing certain things which moves us in the right direction. But the thing is not yet the DNA of a company or the DNA of a country. Those things takes time. So in 25 years, I'm sure nobody will even ask the question whether Nestle is a nutrition and well-being company. Now, where do you move from there onwards? I believe there is something which is the ultimate demand of a consumer. The ultimate demand of a consumer is that he wants not only to live a long life, he wants to live an active life, but he also wants to feel well. And feeling well has to do, of course, with being healthy, but that's not enough. You also want to feel well. That means that mentality-wise, you want to be an optimist. You want to see the future positive. You don't want to have depression. You don't want to have anxiety, okay? And you also want, let's face it, you want to look well. When you wake up in the morning, you look at the mirror, okay, I can live with this face, I can live with my body, okay? So the final demand of a consumer is going to be holistic. It's going to be a well-being demand, okay? And the company should be able to help you to achieve that. Now, we know that nutrition not only can help you to have a healthy life, but nutrition can also help you to overcome anxiety, to help you to overcome if you have cancer treatments and the side effects, negative side effects. Good nutrition can help you to overcome this faster. It can strengthen your body. It can strengthen your cellulars, okay?
Yeah.
So all of those things can be done. I personally believe there are also ways, and I believe that that's why I created Nestle Skin Health. Why did I create Nestle Skin Health? Because I know that nutrition can have a positive or a negative impact in your skin. Okay, we know that. We know many times we are eating certain things and suddenly the skin is reacting. Okay, so this is what I believe in 25 years or in 50 years. It's going to be a well-being company. It's a holistic concept, taking care fully of the demand of the consumer. That's the way I would see it.
And if we look at the food side, Peter, I think there are interesting tendencies now happening of replacing, let's say, meat, be that the beef meat or the chicken meat or even the eggs, well, I think replacing them with their sort of a non-meaty or biological or plant-based food that basically has the same taste as the meat, but it's not a meat at all, or replacing it instead of having in food industry, instead of having beef, or instead of having cows and the bulls and the slaughtering them or killing them using the meat, having just genetically growing their meat. Do you see future in that sort of a business?
Yeah, I think there is no doubt that meat replacements in whatever form are going to have a fixed plan in our diet. Now, it started off, if you want, it started off for ethical reasons, the vegetarians, but this was a small group of people. The new developments, they are all based on ecological considerations, because we know that the protein from an animal demands 10 times the resources than the protein coming from a plant. So the question is, can we feed 10 billions of people the way we are eating today? And the answer is clearly no. We wouldn't have sufficient, the first thing we wouldn't have is sufficient water. 1 calorie coming from a plant needs 1 liter of water. 1 calorie coming from an animal needs 10 liters of water. And if you know that we are already short by about 30% shortage of water every single year, which will go to 40% by 2030, you can imagine that it is impossible to produce amount of meat. So the main reason for the future for this meat replacements and using vegetable and plant proteins is an ecological one, okay? And it will stay, there's no doubt about it. Now, the next one that is coming is a biotech meat, where we are basically using the stem cells of very good cattle, and we are using the meat in reactors, big reactors, and you can use them. This meat has, of course, higher quality protein than the one that is coming from the plant replacements, but for the time being, it is still very expensive. Now, I have no doubt, like with solar energy, the price for this biological molecular meat will come down very soon, very fast, so that I see a future where we're going to have both plant-based protein meat, but also biotechnology-produced protein meat. It is important to understand that the quality of the protein, which is coming from a plant, has not the same level of quality than the one who is coming from meat. Therefore, I personally believe we will always continue to eat meat. I think it is nutritionally a very, very good product. As I said, the limitations is coming from the ecology, that we don't have sufficient water, we don't have sufficient fertile terrain, in order to assure a meat supply for 10 billion of people the way we are using meat today.
I like your comparison with the new technology with the solar one. Indeed, we go back another 10 years only, then the solar technology was there, people were producing panels, but it was expensive. Now, every 2-3 years' time, it becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And I think not using solar energy looks like you are behind of everything because it's so common now. And I agree what you are saying. But that takes me back to another question that I had as well, and I think a lot of people do have. What about genetically modified plants? Because it's a strange situation. There are big states that are easily using that, and people are using that, and I haven't seen any reports of health problems with people using that type of a food. On the other side, small countries, developing countries, poor countries are reluctant to use genetically modified plants or food because they have concerns. Where do we stand there? What is your opinion, Peter?
Well, I think genetically modified food, first of all, has been used now for more than 35 years. Okay, it's not new. This thing has been used for years, and there is not one single case of somebody dying or somebody having a health issue on products which are genetically modified. So there is absolutely no health issue. The issue is an issue of perception and communication. When Monsanto introduced GMO or tried to introduce GMO in Europe, they did not explain what GMO was. They thought this is such a superior technology that everybody would just follow it. And they didn't count on NGOs. And NGOs were using and communicating about GMO in a very efficient manner. Not in a very correct manner, but that's not the way how you communicate if you want to have something in a very efficient manner. What was efficient manner? They were saying, we are changing the genes of the plants, and therefore we will change the genes of the animals that are eating the plants, and therefore we are eating the animals, therefore we are going to change the genes of our body. Okay? So they were using and saying this is Dracula food. Yeah, that was the argument. Okay? So as a politician, if you remember, Tony Blair, he had approved the usage of GMO. The NGOs launched a campaign in the media, and he had to backstep. Okay, and then suddenly the whole thing was like killed. There was no way. The emotion was much too high, and you have reports from hundreds and thousands of scientists which have proven that there is no danger from GMO for the health of the consumers, and yet the emotionally, you cannot launch GMOs in Europe, especially not in Switzerland or in Austria. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is, we all want to have biological bioproducts. That's the one that is in. What we are forgetting that every year, in one country alone, 60 to 70 people die by using bioproducts. Why? Because if you use bioproducts, as you have natural fertilizers, which you all know what a natural fertilizer is, okay? We are throwing the cow shit every field. You have to clean that very carefully. You have to disinfect this product. If you don't do it, you're going back to the old time where people were dying on empoisonment of food. That's not so new. And that happens with biological one. So you have not one person dying from GMO, and you have only one country, 60 to 70 people dying every year. And yet this one seems to be the one that we want, and the other one, the good one, we don't want. It's pure emotion, okay? Now, where are we today? Well, you have GMOs which are about, I think, 25%, something like this. Don't give me exact, but the big part of the big production are all GMO productions, okay? And for Europe, what we are doing is basically we are demanding non-GMO, for example, wheat or non-GMO tomatoes for Europe. But the big part of the population is using GMO. What happens which was, I think, another very, for me, not justified thing is that by the Europe, especially Europe, saying we do not accept GMO, several countries in the developing countries did not allow GMOs to be produced because they have to export their products into Europe. and as they cannot export the products into Europe, therefore they didn't use GMO.
Yes.
Because it's GMO free, which I understand. But it has nothing to do with, again, it has nothing to do whether they are sure or not sure for the population. They are absolutely sure. This has been proven everywhere.
Well, I think it's interesting. Unfortunately, GMO is not the only emotional thing that we have on this planet. A lot of our approaches have the mixture of scientific proof or scientific analysis or scientific data on one side, and on the other side is the emotions or public opinion based on populism or emotional or political interest of specific groups. So I think to find the truth or to push the true solution forward, well, was never easy and probably will continue not be easy. Peter, the last question I would like to ask you is about my country, Armenia. Armenia is a small country. Although it's a global nation, you find Armenians everywhere, including in Sevilla. I know at least several of them there. But it produces very high quality of food and agricultural products. But of course, it's a small country. It's a country with limited space. So as someone who is a real global leader, I mean a leader that has and continues living as a leader, what will be your friendly advice? What should Armenia focus on in the sectors of agriculture, food? If you were the president of Armenia, what you would focus on?
Well, I would not be able to have a fixed opinion because I don't know your country well enough.
So that's why you have to come.
Yeah, I will come. I will. That you can be absolutely sure. But what I would say is, in general terms, we will only be able to feed the 10 billion of people one day if we are producing the food where the best comparative advantages exist. I mean, it would be stupid to say, this idea which is now around about the food autonomy. Every country should be autonomous in its food production. It just makes no sense. It's politically, it sounds politically good, but it doesn't make any sense. We would never be able to feed the world like this.
Agree.
Okay? So we have to produce where we have really good advantages. And take an example of Chile, which I know a little bit better, okay? But Chile, when they turned around the economy, they concentrated on where do we have comparative advantages. They had comparative advantages in the wine producing because the climate does it for the wine, okay? They had comparative advantages in fruit and vegetable. And then, of course, they had comparative advantages in copper and things like this, okay? That's where they basically concentrate. And look what they made out of this by just concentrating on the comparative advantages. So the first thing I would be doing, I was a president, I would be looking where are my comparative advantages? And I would concentrate on this one. That's because, for example, if you are in a country that doesn't have a lot of water, I would not produce cotton. Okay?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but some of your neighbors are doing it. And they have been trying out the Aral Lake, big as it was, because they were producing cotton. Okay? Produce cotton in Louisiana, where it's raining every day. But don't produce cotton in a dry area where you have no water. Okay, so I don't know if I'm sure Armenia must have beautiful parts for fruits and vegetables, because as far as I remember, the climate is for, well, you can make a lot of money with selling fruits as Chile is producing it, apples, pears, grapes, I mean, all of those things. So look where you have your comparative advantages, and that's where I would be concentrating.
Well, I think I do agree with you, and to finish this dialogue, I would say that it's not for a place like Armenia, which is a small state, global nation, and the biggest natural resource is human, and of course the small, beautiful nature. I think I do believe that whatever we produce, be that in mathematics, computer science, biotechnology, indeed in agricultural food, should be high-tech. I mean, the best quality, because you don't have the luxury of being big, trying here, trying there, and you just cover with your quantity. Because if you produce huge amount of, let's say, apples, then you can also beat the market or be in the market with the quantity, not the quality. A small place like Armenia that has wonderful weather, it's very hot and it's very continental, a lot of water, and unfortunately I do believe that we're not managing that water, I mean spring water from the mountains very nicely. But I would go for the top class priority that we have. And priorities, as you said, is good quality. In our case, it's already proven. For example, Armenian brandy, which was known as in Soviet Union as Armenian cognac, has covered huge territory of 300-400 million, and it's very famous now. So I would go in every and each category on a high tech, which is top class, and get the maximum from your products. What is brandy? It's just a grape. You can eat grape, you can dry it, you can make a juice, you can make whatever you like or fizzy drink, but then you can make a wine. But if you make from the same grape, because your grape has a lot of sugar because of the sun, you make a brandy, I mean, you are making maximum of possible money on the same kilogram of a grape. So, well, thank you that we share this idea, and I am looking forward seeing you in Armenia, both next year in spring or May or June. I'd love to show you Armenia, and I'm so happy that I know you personally well as a real young leader, because you you are a young leader. Because it's being young is not about old or young. It's not about the number of years you have been on this planet. You can be 20 years old and be old already because you don't have anything to do. You are not excited. You don't learn every day. And if you don't learn every day, you don't produce or you are not creative every day, then you are not young. But someone like you is very young, and that's why I know a lot of young people admire you. So I hope to see you in Armenia, Peter, and thank you very much with this interview.
Thank you very much for having invited me. I'm really looking forward. Thank you.